You want me to talk to him?
Olivia needs to be let in. You got to that point.
Okay. No, we're waiting for CATV to show up.
Boss.
They're at town hall. And I went over this with them, but for some reason they're at town hall. Did you?
I did go to town hall.
Did you?
I realized I was someplace.
No, I didn't know it's down wrong.
Maybe if you raise your hand.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey,
Our agenda says we're supposed to be at town hall. Did you guys move it to the high school?
we are at the high school right now.
Okay. You want me to just run the Zoom meeting from here? Because you guys are on it.
Be able to get the audience here.
Although because I could come over there, but there's nothing set up. You know, I have to set up you'd have to set up the owls and all of that. And the meeting is only going to be like an hour tonight.
So I've got my boss right over my shoulder. I'll let you talk to him.
Hey, Dave, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, we, on the agenda that I sent to Chico and Samantha, it's the auditorium at the high school. We're expecting kind of a crowd. So I just don't know how you could run it from there and have the crowd.
Well, I've never done anything at the high school there, but I believe you have to set up the owls and all of that, correct?
Yeah,
Okay. There's no way to actually do that then.
all right.
I mean, the meeting starts in 5 minutes.
Yeah, if we delay the start, is there any way?
Well,
to
no,
get-
I mean, I have no way to get the owls.
What about like Chico or Samantha? Are they
Same
available?
thing. It's the same thing.
Do they have a number you can reach them at? Because I don't
Yeah.
have one.
Yeah, I have a number that I can reach them, but I don't know what you want, what we can do.
Well, why don't you ask them what we should do and let me know? I don't know. I don't think we can move down there because we've already warned it. So we'd have to ask them, we can delay the meeting. Well, you know, if they can help you set that up. I understand that, you know, you haven't done it, so.
Yeah, but it would be a minimum of an hour from now before getting the equipment and getting to the school, let alone setting it up.
Oh, you want to talk to him? Oh, my bad.
There's no way you guys can come over here? I mean, everything's set up and ready to go here.
Yeah, I'm just.
I don't even know if it's possible to get any of the owls and get over there and set that up. I would have to have Chico do it because I don't do that.
Right.
And
Can you let Coach in? He guess he wants to talk.
Tom's asking him to add you
Yeah,
in
hang
right
on.
now. Beautiful. All right. Are you in?
I'm not sure how he could run the meeting from there and have the audience participate.
He's getting the answer for you. You're muted right now.
Tom, can you hear me all right?
I just
Yep.
promoted them to panelists, so Coach Christie
Tom?
should be a
Yep,
panelist.
we can hear you.
Okay, great. The thing is, I'm in now, okay? Now, I think if we give co-host capability to the folks there at the high school, they can co-run the meeting. I'm in three meetings right now. So I think I've done a little bit of this before, and I'm on the House floor, so I can tell you, if they give Roy co-host capability and he stays open at the town hall, it keeps the meeting open, Roy will have control of the meeting as the co-host.
How
Okay.
would folks see the audience?
Well, I can
Maybe
see.
they-
Excuse me, if you have a public speaker, take one of you who have an open laptop, take it, just turn it around so that you can see the speaker, and then they'll be on the screen.
Okay.
Everything is being broadcast from here. So if you guys get it up onto your screen there,
We can do it.
be able to see everything.
Yeah. We did that before too, Tom. Remember when we were at the auditorium the first time?
I'll get Jeffrey's laptop. I'll be right back.
So
Okay.
Tom,
Give us a
Tom,
minute just to set that up,
Yeah.
and I think we'll just make it work. Thanks,
Tom,
David.
No problem, but I'm sorry about that. I generally, we had it written down as being in the town hall.
Yeah.
And it's
Mm.
always,
No, I
it's always
understand.
there. So,
No, stuff
but
happens.
nevertheless, we
Stuff
can still
happens.
run the meeting from here.
Yeah,
Broadcast.
we'll improvise and make it work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom, from a technical perspective, this will work. Remember during candidates night when we had to flip one of the laptops around? There was a problem that night, similar, so, it's adaptable. But the big thing is Roy having control as a co-host, because he can let panelists in and have that level of control, locally.
I don't know if we need that. I don't know. All right, we're getting another laptop just so we have the capability. So if you can just give us a minute, Kevin, before you open it.
No, well, see, I won't open it. See, I don't have co-host. See, Roy's going to be the co-host, so he'll be running the show. He'll be your co-pilot.
All right, so Russ will open it.
No, I can open the meeing.
Yeah, that's
when
what
you're
I thought.
ready.
Yeah, that's right. That's what
but
I
I
thought.
meant. But from the technical perspective,
Yeah,
Roy will be your control person in the high school.
We're in good hands then.
You got it, buddy.
All right, give us a minute and I'll let you know. David,
Okay,
too,
no,
I'll let you know.
I'll watch. I'll watch.
Okay.
I've got a couple of things going on. So, hey, Kath, how are you?
Or you could put that sounds like a great idea on the podium.
Right up your alley. I moved it here because I got power.
Yes, I think we can still project it here.
Yeah, I'll put it right up on the. Correct.
See, Kathy, I can see you, and the flag. Okay, that's what I've got right now is you and the flag.
Yeah.
I can see the screen. If you move this a little more, you can pick up the screen too. And yes, there you go. Now I can see the screen and the other table. I can see the edge of the other table as well.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not super clear, but I know I know who's there. That's
Maybe a little more. Is that good?
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. When I'm in gallery,
Yep.
When I'm in gallery, I can see all of that.
Yep. Perfect.
And as long as I don't switch to active speaker, then it picks everybody up.
Yeah.
Another thing you can do is you can pin someone to the screen. So if you just like hover over the little icon, there's a sort of thumbtack looking thing that shows up in the left corner.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Then it won't change at all.
Yeah. Well, I'm more concerned about having this. See, we're co-running the meeting from the town hall because there was a technical problem. They didn't realize we were going to be here, you know, at the high school. So they didn't set up for the high school. So we're improvising, utilizing the technology in order to move the meeting forward, you know, without too much more delay.
Roy, what about the sound?
Cool. All right. Well, that's one meeting down. I guess.
Slightly, like from here, I can see pretty well. He might see, well, that little, I'm trying to do it on my, like that, you know, we move up. Well, it's up. We don't need to-
I'm not sure if they still have them, but the high school got a whole bunch of microphones. They're like Snowball Blues or whatever. I'm not sure if they're still in the building, but if you were able to track one down, then you could just hook it up to your computer and be able to hear people much better.
Do you have any access to microphones that we can hook into this computer? We can't hook into that computer.
I can put it next to the computer.
Okay.
Coach, can you
Oh, I
hear
might
me?
be able to just do the audio.
Coach,
Right,
can you
that's
hear
what I
me?
was
This is
thinking.
David.
Yes, I'll try that.
Yes, I can hear you, Dave.
Okay, the meeting's gonna be muted until you tell me the meeting starts, okay? Starting now.
Okay, cool.
There is a microphone that you can use in one of the teachers' rooms that is close to the auditorium. It's Mr. Dixon's room. I'm not quite sure what the room number is.
You think we can hook it up to this, Roy?
Yeah, there should be a,
I think we can hook them up, either that or she says that Mr. Dixon has a microphone that can plug
We
in.
have a audio jack right there. There should be a green cord right.
Yeah, there's an RCA jack on most of the computers. You know, even my iPad has an RCA jack.
Also, too, Sydney Stillman has joined the meeting. She is the other student rep. So if you wouldn't mind letting her in as a panelist, it'd be great.
Got you. We got you mic'd.
Cool.
want to speak again, please?
Olivia?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you try, give me a couple tests so I can see?
Hi.
Thank you.
Also, let Sydney Stillman in. She is the other student rep, and she is joined as a participant, but she should be a panelist.
Wonderful. Perfect. You're in.
We got Sydney in.
Is David running that?
Yeah, I think so. And then you're gonna have to,
So David, can you let Sydney in, please?
A little bit.
Yeah, there she goes.
I let Sydney in. Who was the first name you said? I missed it.
No, that was it. That was it.
Just,
Yep.
okay.
I'm here.
There's nobody else that needs to be made a panelist?
Not at the moment. I think the
Nancy
other.
Russell does.
Oh, did
Nancy, okay.
Nancy just came in? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, she just
No
came
problem.
I'm not looking at the participant list.
And if you were able to find a Snowball Blue from Dixon's room, then you can hook it up to the computer so that we can hear people on the other side of the table where the rest of the school board is.
David, is it gonna mess you up if we have Roy in as two, or have him in at twice?
No, No, as long as he's co-host on one, that's the key.
Okay.
Because that way he can assist in letting people in. And when we start to have the conversation with the public, he can then determine who comes into the meeting.
I'm not sure if you guys found the mic yet, but Mr. Dixon's room is room 130.
Thank you, Sydney. We're all set with the mic.
Cool.
Yes.
Kevin, can you hear me? This is Nancy.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
I have laryngitis really bad,
Again? What? Oh,
so
poor
I'm
thing.
probably not going to be much talking.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hey, but you're here. That's the big thing. We needed you here, you know.
I am here. I am.
This is David from CATV. You guys,
Thanks.
when people put their hands up, I'll still run the questions, and you guys let me know when you want me to let someone speak who has their hand up, okay?
Okay. Roy's going to be, our active person from the auditorium.
Okay.
Because we're gonna have live people as well. So he can work with you. He'll be your co-pilot on this end.
Okay, no problem.
So Roy Hathorn's your key person. But I think between the two of you, we can rock and roll with this. So we ready, Tom?
Almost. We're having to download Zoom on the computer that we're using for the audience.
Oh, got it.
David, can you let Peter Merrill in as well?
Peter is a co-host. David, would you add Peter Merrill as a co-host, please?
That one muted until somebody comes up to speak, and then we'll have to deal with figure out what we have to do for that person to speak. You know what I'm saying? I'll do it.
One thing that you will have to do, if you are letting my dad in and you're using his audio, then you will have to pin this current thing showing the board from your computer, Mr. Hathorn, so that way people at home are seeing the board instead of just seeing like my dad.
Okay.
There he is. He's at the comm. Roy, it's like Star Trek. You have Hey, I thought so. All right. Okay, so you and David are gonna run the show, Roy.
Okay. All right, and you're good now. You can see everything.
Yep. You and David have the comm, basically.
Roy?
Yes,
Roy,
sir.
can you hear me?
Yep.
We'll run this the same way we do every meeting, where somebody has their hand up. Let me know who you want to allow to talk, and I'll let them
Perfect.
talk. Okay.
Thank you, David.
No problem.
Okay. So I think we're ready to go.
Can you let Tom DeBallsy in?
It's going to be very difficult.
There is really intense echo.
This you can't talk.
If Peter, let's see, there he just dropped off this screen. Okay.
Yeah, there was really intense echo. I think the
Yeah.
two computers were just like
Exactly.
bouncing back and forth.
That's what it was. Okay. So are we ready? Okay, Peter, the computer you're on, is that a mic'd computer?
Only once I was trying to unmute it, it would, mute it, and it would not let me. I got it mute.
He wasn't able to unmute and mute back and forth, so right now he has it muted, he said.
Okay, cool. Well, there's no echo, so I think we're ready to go. If everybody feels ready, we can get a thumbs up from everybody. Ready. So you all set, Tom?
Well, my only concern. Oops, hang on.
Geez, when Tom, when Tom spoke, we got a lot of, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Actually, that was better than when you went through your computer.
Yeah, I want to make sure we can see Peter, Russ, and Hava.
We're not gonna really be able to.
They're down. Okay,
Tom.
we've got
Tom,
they're
Tom,
I can see.
Yes.
Go
this
ahead.
is David from CATV. Can you make sure to speak loudly into that microphone?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure the mic, is the microphone picking me up, folks?
No, I don't think.
Yes, yeah.
It isn't.
Brianne, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can anybody out there hear Tom?
Yeah, I can hear. I can hear Tom.
Yeah, not in the audience. Yeah.
May I say?
Yeah.
This is not gonna work. Either we need to get CATV people here running our audio system, or we all need to go down to town hall. Can't do it both. Just not gonna work.
Wait. At one point, we had Peter and Russ and Hava all on camera, and then everybody else that was on screen. Sydney and Olivia and Nancy are on screen, and all of that was working.
The reason is that the system automatically highlights who's speaking. I had to turn off the audio on my computer to keep getting feedback. So I can't take the stage. None of us can take the stage on the conference call because we have no audio. Then I turn on audio, we get feedback.
Right.
So we're there, you're just never gonna see us.
So when we get to any vote, we'll do a roll call, and because I can hear you clearly.
What you can do is pin the person that you want to see. So you can pin the view from Mr. Hathorn's computer. So that way you always see the people in the auditorium who are speaking.
That works. Did Mr. See right now, Russ, you're in the camera, so he must be pinned. Because he's not speaking, but he's right there. And Mr. DeBalzi's getting up. we ready to give it a try?
So, Coach, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have real concerns about this actually working anyway at all. I do think that the best choice is trying to get the CATV people here and make it work, because we're having such a combination of different computers, cross-wired and everything else. It's just going to be extraordinarily difficult. It's going to mean that the meeting gets delayed, but it was warned for being here. People are here, deserve the right to have a chance to speak to the public and take part in the conversation. I just don't know how we're going to be able to do that.
Well, I guess if David, all right, can you hear us? Okay, David.
Yeah, I can hear everybody.
We're having some technical issues.
One of the best, I think what you might want to do is have Roy and Tom sit together and share that computer. So whoever's talking, point the computer at yourself, because his computer, the volume is on and it's not echoing.
But
I'm talking about Roy's computer.
Okay, but what about the audience? You know, as people, you know, step up to the microphone to speak, because they will come up to the podium, let's say, or to the mic to speak.
Well, right. Then you need to turn the one of the laptops around.
Right.
To face
Laptop designated for that.
So.
Okay, and the thing is, see, the audio would be picked up from Tom and Roy's laptop. It doesn't have to have an additional laptop, which is causing the interference, right? Is what you're getting at?
No.
Correct,
What I'm
Coach.
saying is Tom's laptop is echoing. So
Mhm.
Tom and Roy can share Roy's computer. So when Tom needs to speak, he can use Roy's computer. So they can just sit together and then move the camera back and forth.
Okay, so what about the audience?
What you could do for the audience is have someone else's computer join, but turn the sound off and mute it. So you just have it facing the audience. And then when someone needs to talk, they walk over to that computer and just make sure that it's close enough that the microphone that Mr. Hathorn is using can also pick that up.
Well, that makes sense if it's workable from there, you know, and I guess that's just a logistical question to the folks that are on stage. What do you think, Roy?
This is Peter. I really don't think this is going to be workable. Given the problem, we're just trying to talk with each other right now. I think we should delay until the CATV people get up here, have them set up, and start when we actually have the system running. I apologize to everybody, but
I talked to I talked to Chico. That's not possible.
If you're worried about hearing us, why don't we project our voices instead of having to use a mic?
Because there's more people in the audience on the video than there are in the building. They need to be able to hear and participate too.
So,
well, everybody can go up and use the mic, so can the board members. I mean, it's
Hey,
amateur
we-
hour. For 2 years, you've been doing this electronically and you're having a hard time pulling together one meeting.
so Peter, right now there's 58 participants on Zoom. Okay. And you know, how many do we have in the auditorium? So if we could let the folks know that, you know, our larger group, you know, is on Zoom, and as long as we can communicate, you know, with them, if they wouldn't mind coming up to the front row so that they can hear, you know, the conversation, you know, if that's workable, because it's sounding like technically they don't have the bandwidth to get us going, and if that makes sense, if that's workable. What do you think, Tom?
I think it's, it's worth a try. Try to tweak any problems as they arise. But
Because I can hear you, and I heard Peter, you know, when he was talking.
The biggest problem that you're having is that you're using a microphone that's connected to the auditorium sound system, but you need a microphone that connects from like the computer to Zoom. So
Right.
if you get a microphone that can plug into your computer, then you can just put it in the middle of where the rest of the board members are sitting. We did this a lot last year in school.
Might simplify things if we can have the board join us over here. Kathy can play Vanna and pass the mic around, and we'll give it a shot.
I believe that mic is not having audio that connects to a computer, right? It's just the auditorium sound system.
I'm not sure which one they have now, Olivia. If they've got a live one, hopefully they've got an RCA mic and not, or if it's digital, you know, hopefully they could do it through Wi-Fi into the computer, you know, if it's a Wi-Fi, you know, mic, which it should be, right? You would think that mic would have Wi-Fi capability because it's wireless.
Already connected to everything in the auditorium.
Well, the other thing to do would be to shut that down, and then it would seek the computer, you know, for pairing.
It would probably just be easiest to get an external microphone that you can plug into Roy's computer. I know that we have a bunch of them in the high school because remote learning, you had to get them.
Right. No, I hear you. That's what I use here, you know, and I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense, you know, because I use an external, you know, headset, and then I've got a Wi-Fi headset on one device, and then the third device I've got another, you know, just an earpiece that I use for that one. So when I've got 3 meetings going on at the same time, I can do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's not necessarily, you know, kosher, I think people might say, but you know, as long as you don't, you know, unmute yourself at the wrong time, you know, you
know. You gotta have good reflexes to make that work, though.
I might not move across the, you know, the ground like I used to, but I can still, you know, jockey with the best of them, you know.
That sound. Come up to that computer. They're good to go.
So, folks, how we doing? Hey. Looks like you guys are at a lineup, you know. Do we need to take mug shots of you guys or what?
All right, Coach, they're ready.
Okay. David, I guess we're gonna go live.
Okay, you're all set.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. Sorry for the delay. There was a technical kerfuffle tonight, and that seems to be the case sometimes. But that being said, welcome to the continuation of the March 9th school directors meeting. and we're calling it to order at 6:29. Are there any changes, additions, and approval of the extended agenda? So,
Move that we accept the agenda.
okay. So we'll start with the governance protocols. That's where we left our discussion, changes to the masking recommendations. And so, Tom, you have the floor.
Thank you. What we're gonna do tonight is the COVID team response team to the district met this week several times. And Felicia Hayes hopefully is in the audience, and she's one of the COVID coordinators. She's going to review our recommendations for changes and we'll go from there. So let Felicia Hayes in as a panelist here.
David, did you hear him? I let Felicia Hayes in.
Alicia Hayes.
Yes, please.
Okay, she's in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Felicia. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for allowing me to speak. The School Health Services Coordinator and the COVID coordinators have reviewed the changes to the guidance from the CDC, the Vermont Department of Health, and the Agency of Education, and have discussed our proposed response protocol with Mr. DeBalzi. Based on current available information from these agencies, universal masking is not recommended in Windsor County at this time. If this board decides to end universal masking in our district schools, we propose masking in specific circumstances, which would be in accordance with CDC recommendations. And that would be for any individual who may have symptoms of illness, and for those for 10 days following a positive test or for 10 days following an exposure. While we've seen a decline in cases in our schools, community, and country, the virus is still present and the potential for another surge remains. That said, we would further propose that the option to return to universal masking be left open and determined based on the level of community transmission, and would ask our families to be flexible and responsive to this. While we are cautiously optimistic that there are countries who are currently experiencing an increase in case counts and hospitalizations after seeing a decline, and we feel that this supports the need to be ready to pivot back to increased prevention measures if needed. Individuals at risk for severe disease from COVID would be encouraged to contact their healthcare providers for guidance about masking. Individuals could certainly continue to choose to wear a mask in school, and any related bullying or harassment would not be tolerated. We propose that we keep the other mitigation factors that we have used throughout the past couple of years, including requiring that people stay home when sick and test if they have any potential COVID symptoms. We would also continue to recommend testing following exposure. We would also continue to communicate when we learn of a positive case of COVID, both to those individuals affected and to the larger school community. Vaccination remains one of the best defenses we have against viruses such as COVID. And so we strongly encourage those that are not currently vaccinated to discuss any questions or concerns with their healthcare provider so that they can make a fully informed decision. For those who have been vaccinated, if their parents have not already done so, if they could provide their child's school nurse with an updated vaccination record, it would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you.
Tom?
Certainly entertain questions now, but what I wanted to display on the screen so the audience can see and those out in cyberspace can view is a bulleted,
There we go.
bulleted list of the changes in the COVID response for the school district. And I think this will be a simplified version for the board to comment on, the public to comment on, and see where this goes. I don't know if Roy can shrink it down so I can see the whole page. Maybe you can't, you won't be able to see it well. It's also in your packet that the board members have. The only other thing that, oops.
When you're speaking, please face Mr. Hathorn's computer. Online, we can't really hear you.
The other item that Felicia did not go over that is in the board packet tonight, it's in the folder on the board's website. And people that are here have it, but if you're in the in Zoom, you can go to the board's folder for tonight's meeting. There are updated vaccination rates for the district. And last week when we met, the numbers were quite different, especially at the elementary level. So I just wanted to make sure the board members saw that. So I'll read it just to make sure if you can't access that folder. The entire district, 59%. The Hartford High School, 63%. Hartford Memorial Middle School, 56%. White River School, 42%. Jotham Brook School, 59%. And Bataquiche School, 68%. So the elementary schools are especially different than what I reported last week. These are the numbers from the state. Thank you.
Thanks for that update, Tom.
Maybe questions from the board for the COVID coordinators or myself. Wherever you want.
Okay, we'll open up the questions to the board. So we'll start with Hava. Was that?
Just a quick confirmation question. When I read that masking would be recommended for 10 days following a COVID exposure, that's going to mean that every time you can't go. Coach, can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. And that's just Nancy who can't hear.
So your question was to.
Yeah, I'm sorry, let me pick it back up. So my question is just a confirmation or a clarifier. That means every time parents get an email that says your child's been exposed to COVID in that grade, that means that everybody who's in that grade or that class has been masked for 10 days. Been in that exposure group. Is that correct?
I could not hear your question. The microphone is projecting what you're saying into the auditorium, but everyone online can't hear it. The only way that can hear you speak is through the microphone that's a part of Mr. Hathorn's computer. Everyone at home can't hear you speaking through the microphone you're holding. That only projects sound into the auditorium.
Lava, try unmuting your mic.
Hello?
Oh, that's not good.
Hello?
So I think what we're going to need to do is relay the question. If
Excuse me. Nope, sorry, we just had to test.
no, because every time that they unmute that computer that they're at, we get heavy feedback.
You'd have to either pass Mr. Hathorn's computer down the table that you're sitting at so that it's facing each person who's speaking, or
Yeah.
you can get a microphone like a Snowball Blue that we have in the school that connects directly into Mr. Hathorn's computer. Because the biggest problem isn't people in the auditorium hearing you, it's people at home hearing you. And so
Well, that's
have a microphone that connects directly into Mr. Hathorn's computer.
yeah, it's got to have an RCA. Yeah. Roy?
Yeah, next to the
If you want to come stand next to the computer, that's great.
You could try that, like a podium.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's give that a shot.
Yep, we can hear you. We're starting to get a bit of an echo from the sound system in the auditorium. So if people in the building can hear you without the microphone, then you may want to turn the microphone off.
Turn it off, right, yeah.
I'm being told that no, they cannot, so I'm going to use both and speak slowly. It was
Okay.
a simple clarifying question. I just wanted to verify that I understood what you said correctly, Alicia. You said, as I understand it, that 10 days after an exposure, students will then be masking again. And I just want to make sure that I understand that correctly, which is every time a parent or family receives a notice that says your child has had an exposure in his or her classroom, this school, this environment, every time that notice goes out, that whole group of exposed students will then mask together for 10 days. Is that correct?
Correct. And that's the CDC guidance is the last day of exposure would be day 0. For 10 days following, you wear a mask.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Questions? Board members? No, our questions are done here, Coach.
Okay. Nancy's got laryngitis again. But if she wanted to try to ask a question, that would be fine. Otherwise, Tom,
I believe Olivia has a question.
yeah, I think so.
Hi. Thank you. My question was, you had talked a little bit about how we would go mask optional if cases stay low. What would the process be like for reinstating universal mask wearing if we start to have an increase in cases? And what sort of increase would we be looking for to trigger a conversation about putting mask wearing back in place?
And that's Nancy's question as well.
So if we follow this current CDC guidance, they're basing it on level of community transmission by county. And that is, I put in that bullet sheet, there's a link to the cdc.gov where you put in your state and the county and it tells you the level. I believe it's updated weekly on Thursdays. Low and medium, universal masking is not recommended outside of those circumstances I mentioned. And when it reaches a level of high transmission, that's when universal masking is recommended while indoors. So we would need to monitor that and send out a message and have everybody ready to respond accordingly.
Does that answer your question, Nancy and Olivia?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Great.
Can
Go
you
ahead,
hear
Nancy.
me at all?
Yes, yes.
So if we saying, okay, no more mask, or we call it optional, whatever you want to call it, whoever wants to wear a mask and or needs to wear a mask. What is our plan to get, what are we going to do to make it even safer now? So masks don't completely make you completely safe. They don't prevent it. It makes you safer. Makes the people around you safer. So my question is, if we say, okay, the kids can just, and the teachers too, can just go without mask, are we going to do anything additional to continue to make that a safe environment for our teachers and our students?
I think,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Felicia.
I think that we've achieved the level of safety, for lack of a better word, that we have by using a multi-layered approach. Masking is one piece of that.
Right.
If you lose one piece, it stands to reason that the other pieces should be strengthened, or at least continued. And so that is why we would recommend that if the board decides to end universal masking for now, at least, that those other mitigation factors be kept in place as part of our response protocol. So requiring anyone with any symptoms stay home, requiring that they test and prior to returning have a negative test and improvement of symptoms, sending students and staff home who end up developing illness during the day, testing following exposure, and testing. If somebody tests positive, they can end their isolation. It's a 10-day isolation. They can end after 5 days if they've had 2 negative tests and improvement of symptoms. So because we are finding that people are continuing to test positive for beyond that 5 days. And so really maintaining and holding tight on those other mitigation factors, I think, would be our only, it's what we're left with. But it's definitely a multi-layered approach to achieve what we've achieved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Felicia. Any other board questions or comments before we open up? Peter? Okay. Russ?
Nope.
Okay. And Olivia?
Thank you. So most people who are getting COVID tested are getting tested because they're symptomatic. And previously we had discussed the ideas of like surveillance programs or things like that to try to get more people who are asymptomatic. In what ways are people who are asymptomatic and at school getting tested? Or is it more like we're just waiting to see if someone develops symptoms to test?
Well, the state had previously allowed us to do PCR testing in the school health offices, which we had been doing, and for all intents using as a surveillance testing if that's how people wanted to use it. Unfortunately, that testing program has ended and we no longer have that option. We have our COVID testing, our antigen test supply that's provided by the state, which we'll continue to hand out as long as it continues to come in. My understanding is right now we have quite an adequate supply. So tests are available to people who need them for specific reasons. Whether we have the supply and the promise of a supply chain to open it up to a more surveillance type testing, I'm not sure of. I think that would have to be confirmed. But I know we have quite a few tests at this point.
Thank you. And is the antigen test distribution program going to continue throughout the rest of the school year? Or has there been a broader discussion of potentially ending it along with some other testing programs?
As far as I know, the only testing program that ended was the PCR testing. From everything that I've heard come from the Agency of Education thus far, the antigen test kits will remain available. That said, I think everybody over the past couple of years, if we've learned nothing else, we've learned things change. So I don't know if that will change too, but right now that's not being talked about.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Felicia. Any other questions as we hear those? Otherwise, we can, Roy, you can entertain questions from the public at this point.
The gentleman in the front. Yeah, I think he has to unmute that so people can hear him.
Yeah, I heard you.
Can everybody hear me?
Mr. Hathorn, you need to turn your computer to face whoever's speaking, because if you unmute a second device, then there will be an echo.
That one should be.
Well, I was thinking, you know, if there were any raised hands in the Zoom audience as well, because he has that field.
Can you folks not hear the gentleman speaking?
No, we cannot. The person speaking needs to approach your computer, because your computer is the only thing that has a microphone that connects to Zoom. So you would need to come up to the computer and like talk to it about like from a foot away.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
That works
All
perfectly.
right.
Thank you.
Do I need the microphone? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. My name is Chris McSherry. I have two children in the Hartford School District, one in the middle school, one in the high school. We've been dealing with COVID now for 2 years. The CDC we keep hearing for 2 years, trust the science, trust the science. Frankly, let me tell you what is science. Science is the fact that my autistic son has struggled these last 2 years with behavioral issues because he and his fellow students have been forced to wear a mask. As educators, you should all know that the majority of human communication is nonverbal. Being able to see our mouths, see the reactions on people's faces. You wonder why you have behavioral issues in the elementary schools, that the teachers are getting burnt out. Well, you know, when young children can't see what the expressions on their friends' faces and they get overwhelmed emotionally. I'm at the point, I don't care what the CDC says anymore. If you are concerned about catching COVID, wear a mask. In fact, I would recommend N95 because that's more effective. If you're really concerned about catching COVID, buy a military-grade gas mask. You can buy those on Amazon. The point is, it is time to move on and start to live our lives. We don't need, oh, rates are going up in Windsor County. We need to start universal masking again. No, if you're worried about catching it, get the vaccine, put on an N95, go out, buy a gas mask. It's time to move on with our lives. End the mask mandates now, effective immediately. No more contingency plans. Move on. It's just like the flu. We dealt with the Spanish flu over 100 years ago. I don't see anybody talking about mandating testing for the flu. I don't see anybody, you know, mandating, oh, you got the flu. People die from the flu every year. Lots of people do. But, you know, it's time to live with this. It's time to move on. If you want to continue living in fear, like these people I see driving down the road in a car by themselves wearing a mask. If you're one of those people and you want to wear a mask all the time, go for it. But it is time to move on. I am tired of hearing about children struggling behaviorally because they've been dehumanized with masks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Coach, I don't have anybody in the audience that's in our Zoom audience with a hand raised. Anybody in the audience here? Yes, we do.
Yep. Here's another.
Hi, I'm Anna McSherry. I'm a ninth grader at Hartford High School. And I would just like to say that every day I go into class and there's at least one kid with their mask pulled under their nose. And if people really think the masks are going to help, they'd wear them properly. But since most of the kids aren't wearing them properly to begin with, what's the point in wearing them at all? Thank you.
Okay, David, can you let Cassandra North in, please? Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, we can hear you.
Hi, I am a teacher at the high school, and so I just have at least a question. I understand like the wanting to mask after an exposure, but how is that going to be enforced? Because right now we're just getting blanket emails that someone in one of your classes may have been exposed. And to be very honest, I don't know if kids will just mask automatically if they get that email. So as a teacher, how am I supposed to know if a kid's masking? Are we sending out daily updates with which kids need to wear a mask?
Felicia and Tom.
I think that's a good question. It's certainly one we've all talked about. I think the reality is there is no good way. I mean, if you want to just come right out and say it, there is no good way to enforce this. It comes down to a level of personal responsibility. We share the guidance, we share the rules, we ask people to follow them. The state changed the way they defined exposure in schools in January. And so when you get that blanket email, that means you were in the classroom and you were considered to have a presumed exposure. You may or may not have been right next to the person, but that's how they defined it. And so you're right, there isn't a good way, but it's about keeping people informed and asking that they follow the guidance that we have. So if universal masking is removed, it even further places the onus on the individual. And I think as the overall guidance has been transitioning and shifting when the emergency order ended, there's been a shift and a transition to personal responsibility and people doing, what they, for lack of a better word, should be doing based on the current guidance.
Does that answer your question, Cassandra? Oh, she's gone. I see Hava had your hand up.
And you could even ask this for me if you would like. My question, my follow-up question is just, will teachers be notified when there's been an exposure in their classroom? Because that doesn't expose anybody's specific name. But would let a teacher know that there's been exposure? They would presumably have that notification anyway because they're part of the classroom. Is that true?
Felicia, did you hear that? There's a question around how are teachers notified if there's a positive case in their class?
Everybody in the classroom, student or teacher, receives the email saying that there was a presumed notification, a presumed exposure and the dates of the exposure.
Thank you.
So to Hava's question, you don't get the specific student's name.
Absolutely not. And the email is vague. It's intentionally vague. We have to honor
Mhm.
we have to protect
Right,
HIPAA and
right.
people's confidentiality. So all anybody knows is they were in the room on these days. Someone
Yep.
tested positive, they,
Mhm.
so that's that.
Yeah. We have another questioner.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Bingham. I am the mother to a preschooler at Brook. His name is Charlie Bingham, and he is also autistic. You have to forgive me, I'm like super nervous shaking. All those years in law school, I would have been more prepared, but I'm not. What I did want to say though is because Charlie can't be here and talk to all of you, I just wanted to talk to you about my experience as a mother. I don't want this to be a political thing because I understand there are legitimate concerns for anyone in the middle of the pandemic, but as a parent with a child with autism, we've seen firsthand the effects that masking has on these students who have to be able to recognize words with their mouths and also other facial recognition with entire faces. I emailed the school board. I don't know if they got my email because I didn't hear back from anyone, but I talked about how, again, my little 4-year-old already has a hard time making friends because of his social delays, comes home concerned none of the other students like him because he can't see their faces. I understand that there are those who perhaps have some sort of autoimmune disease or situations where they feel more comfortable wearing masks. But when the town of Hartford itself has rescinded the masks, I don't understand how the school board should be more interested in the education of our students at this point. After the last 2 years, I think with the president's address during the State of the Union, encouraging us to get back to a new normal and fill our downtowns and workplaces, why we feel here in such a small rural area, it's more important to continue being more concerned with fear than with progress. I'm not initially from Vermont. We moved here for my husband's job here at the Adjournment Hospital. He's a doctor. But when I moved here, I remembered from when I was a kid learning, I think that Vermont was one of the first states, I think, to abolish slavery. And I remember thinking that was like the coolest thing to do to such a progressive area. So I'm hoping we don't have to be the last state in the country to continue moving forward, not just on behalf of all students, but our community at large. And again, especially for those with special needs, with behavioral challenges, and again, for those who are autistic, who some of them can't even verbally communicate. My son was able to verbally communicate for years. So again, I'm just hoping we can really take our children with disabilities into consideration when making this decision and not just worry about fear-based statistics. Thank you.
At this time, Coach, there's nobody in the audience with their hand raised.
So, Olivia.
Thank you. I just had one clarifying question. How do the vaccination rates of the town of Hartford compare to the vaccination rates of our schools?
Alicia, I'm not sure if you have that. A while ago, I had heard what it was, but I haven't heard any update recently. I thought it was high 80s. Have you heard anything, Felicia, or can you look that up quickly?
I think that maybe what she's doing is she's on the dashboard, the Department of Health dashboard. Probably.
Yeah, it looks like Windsor County's at 51%.
Thank you.
Yep.
Coach.
Yes.
Just can I have a word?
You were going to be the next since there were no other questions.
I just want to make sure that people don't make this wrong either way. Whatever the board decides, the board will decide based on the information they have and the input they've received. I don't want it to be, if we stay masked, there's anything wrong with those that have advocated for masking because they have a genuine safety concern or a health issue or something, or for those who have unmasked, there's the problem there. I mean, I think folks need to be able to speak their mind tonight and speak their mind and react however they want to react and respond in school. So I just don't want to leave here with people, oh, you're wearing a mask, so there's a problem, or we're in opposition to each other. I think we need to make sure that whatever happens tonight, for those who choose to do something different, they're safe and they're comfortable doing that. So if a child or a student, if the board decides to remove the mask mandate, if a child or a teacher decides to wear their masks, they're not the enemy. There's someone who has a legitimate concern about their own health. And in America, we get to make those choices. So I just want to be very careful with that so people are comfortable.
Thanks a lot, Tom. That's where, before we had our other technical difficulty last week, Tom was very clear about sharing that as his recommendation to the board. And as an educator and our chief educator, based on the information he's gotten, from his team of experts, the approach of the district as far as being equitable and fair to every student, employee, and parent and family, clarity is key. I think Felicia gave us a very clear understanding of what our protocol is and could be. And Tom has been very clear about his expectation for the safety and civility of kids and students moving, and teachers moving forward, so that it doesn't become an us and them and a we and they type of situation. It is about people being able to feel safe and comfortable within the school community. And that's critical. And I know that that's what he was referring to there. Other board members, questions, please?
Let's see if I can do this without ignoring everybody. Sorry, it's not an easy angle. So we each have come to the pandemic from where we stand. We have children who have autism. We have parents who have died because of COVID. We have a general level of frustration at a world which doesn't seem to follow the rules that we're used to anymore and is impacting on all of us in ways that are aggravating and terrifying and disturbing. And it's very hard to figure out what the right thing is. As I said at the last meeting, process that I have come to depend on, given the difficulties understanding science, understanding the politics, understanding the different needs of different people, has been to rely upon our own group of experts who have searched through the literature on our behalf and who have attempted to provide us with the most relevant and safest way to approach this whole mess. Based on that, I can only say that we need to continue to do that. That's what's worked for us as much as anything has worked for us. It is not perfect. We have not been given the luxury of having perfect choices. Choices we have been given with all have been bad. And therefore, in the situation of trying to choose the least bad of the choices we have. So, based on that, we need to realize that what we do today may change based on what happens tomorrow. If you've been paying attention to the news, you are aware that the European states, which relaxed their mask mandates, are now seeing a huge influx in growth in COVID cases. This is a very difficult truth to face. The same thing has happened in China, where the entire economy has had to shut down the last couple of days to the extent that, well, you haven't seen it at the pump yet, and you may not, given the way the world works. The price of crude oil dropped from $130 a barrel, where it has gone to because of the war in Ukraine, to below 100 because the demand for oil dropped so much in China. Those are the kinds of immediate economic impacts on everybody's life that we are trying to avoid. And there is a reason that we as a school district think about this differently than the town does. Anybody who has had small children knows they go to school, they play with their friends, they come home with some nice form of the creeping crud. This is just a fact about how we interact with each other in the school that is different from how we interact with each other out on the streets or in the businesses that we frequent. So we have a responsibility to each other and to our children. The very, very first rules that we learn about how to conduct our schools is that there has to be a safe learning environment. If you don't have that, nothing else happens in the schools. We, at this table and on the conference call, are entrusted with that obligation to make sure that we have a safe environment. And I don't know how we balance the emotional strain that I recognize your families have gone through, that your children have suffered against the loss when a child dies from COVID, but that is a balancing act that is actually taking place. It's not a hypothetical, and I totally, completely understand and sympathize about the anguish you feel and the sheer rage and annoyance you face when having to wear a mask. It is a front and present symbol of everything we've had to go through for the last couple of years, and it's not easy to take any more of it. But we are hopefully still a society that reflects upon what others need as well as what we need, and take into consideration the common good when we make our decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Nancy, I know your voice is kind of tired. Thoughts, because I'm going to bring us to making a decision here, but I want to make sure, because of our technical pieces, that we do hear from all of the board.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, I have to apologize. This is as loud as it gets. So I've heard a couple of parents and or teachers, and then we've all got the the 17 people that sent each of us in the board their thoughts and their feelings about masking or not masking. So one of the things that I keep hearing and read in a couple of the letters kind of bothered me. So I did some more research on that, because they're saying that the problems that some of these kids have, especially the younger ones, is due to the masking. But when I looked it up, Dr. Diane Paul from the American Speech, Language, Hearing Association, which is the National Association for Professional Speech Therapy, representing speech therapists. And this is a quote from Dr. Paul. There are no studies to prove or disapprove the need for speech therapy is due to masking rather than the lingering effects of remote learning and other factors of the pandemic. So for the ones that, I don't want some of the people to be confused and thinking that, oh my goodness, these kids are having a horrible time and it's all due to the masking, which it's not all due to the masking at all. These kids had trauma and they had problems when we were doing remote learning, and there was no mask involved in that at all. So I mirror everything that Russell said. I also believe that this is my belief. I believe it as a school board person and as a resident of this community. I believe that masking should continue while being aware of the limitations. We know there's limitations out there with some of these kiddos. It makes it either difficult and or absolutely no, they can't do it. Masking challenges are real, but we can manage them with some of these adjustments so that we can make it safe for every child and every staff member in our district. Thank you, Coach, for letting me talk.
Thanks, Nick. Olivia, then Russ.
I was just going to make the comment that it seems like there are several people who are trying to raise their hand in the chat, and their hands keep being put down quickly after they're raised. So someone might have to watch the chat a little bit more closely to make sure that we are really able to get everyone's opinions on this matter.
Okay. If Roy can keep a close eye, on those intermittent hand up down things, we'll continue to keep an eye open. Russ?
So if you could add Mark into from the audience, I've seen his name pop up and pop down.
Okay. So he'll be next after Russ.
Okay.
First of all, I would like to thank everyone who expressed an opinion, either by email or in person tonight. I respect the fact that they've all been seasoned and logical and conducive to legitimate discussion. This is a very emotional topic. Our kids are emotional to us. And while it would be ideal if emotion doesn't play into this, it does. I feel very strongly about my children, and I'm sure everyone else does. And as I said, this has been a difficult decision. And one of the real concerns I have, and it was alluded to by the young lady, is the unequal enforcement that's happening now with the masks. And if we can extrapolate that to, if we go to a maskless environment, that kids will be kids, my own included, and there will be difficulties, there will be taunting, there will be picking on. And I just want to make sure that we are very firm in our position that will not be tolerated. And if somebody engages in that, and they don't think they've been adequately heard, they need to come to the superintendent and the school board. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. Mark?
Sorry to interrupt real quick.
No,
But
go ahead.
for people who are speaking in person, remember to face the computer or else we can't really hear you. But Coach, sorry.
No, you almost have to stand parallel to it so that you can, project both directions. If you stand sideways at it, because if you face the audience, then you're facing away. So your point's well taken. Mark. Mark, unmute yourself, please. Mark, can you hear us? You need to unmute yourself. If not, we will move on to the next person and we'll catch up with you when you're there. Roy?
Yeah, I don't have any other hands popping in and out.
Okay.
There are
Oh,
two.
now we do. Brianna Goodspeed.
Yes. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing others, but more or less catching the gist. My name is Brianne Goodspeed. I'm the mom of a 7-year-old boy in the Hartford School District. I really appreciate hearing from the parents who have children with special needs. I do as well. The last 2 years have been, I would say, a major setback. And I know that there are a number of factors, a number of reasons for that, but I think it troubles me to see the degree to which the mandatory masking has been dismissed as a factor in that. I urge the board to follow Governor Scott's recommendation to end mandatory masking. His recommendation has been endorsed by the Vermont chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics and is also consistent with the recommendation of U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona. The governor emphasized on March 3rd during his briefing, as he has been for weeks, that our children need and deserve to get back to a state of normalcy, that they need to see faces. Vermont Secretary of Education Dan French stated, "Our goal is to eliminate separate mitigation recommendations for schools and instead follow broader mitigation measures for all Vermonters. Specific mitigation measures for schools are no longer necessary from a risk perspective. Making this shift will allow us to place a higher priority on lost learning and addressing the social and emotional needs of our students." I think it is extremely important for the board, which has been, as far as I know, following the recommendations of the governor and his team of experts up until this point, to continue to do so. And what I'm about to say, I say it with all due respect, and I hope that it's taken in that way, but it was clear to me watching the school board meeting last week that I don't think the members have the requisite expertise to be going, I don't have an easy way to say this, to be going rogue on such an important decision for our children, an indirect contradiction of the governor's recommendation, which is based on data and information from a robust team of policy, public health, biostatistics, and education experts. So I urge you to drop the mandatory masking policy for our children. I agree with the gentleman who was the first to speak, who also has a special needs child, and his statement that it's time to move on. Our children.
Muted yourself or somebody.
You muted, Brianna. You
Sorry,
muted.
did I mute myself?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, you did. It wasn't us. It wasn't us, Brianna.
My son is, I think you kind of got the gist. I mean, I'm I am urging you to please drop the mandatory masking for our children. My son is here right now. He has asked to say something. I don't know what he's going to say. I have not coached him on what to say, but I'd like to give him a brief opportunity to say something if he chooses. Liam, okay, go ahead, speak up and tell them your name.
My name is Liam Goodspeed. I'm a little afraid, but I just want to tell you my opinion of masks. For one, masks, what little kids need to see is bigger kids' smiling faces. That gets their brain to grow.
Awesome.
And number two is that masks they don't help at all. The cloth masks, the paper masks, it does not work. 3, nobody needs more than one mask and I'm fed up with masks.
Okay. Shall we call it there, hon?
Yeah.
Okay. Where we say thank you.
Thank you for no.
Okay, I think
Thank
we
you.
captured it there again.
Thank you, Liam.
Thank you for too.
David,
Brian,
would like to try again?
yeah, if he wants to see if he can get his technical thing squared away.
David, did you hear me? Mark is looking to get in.
Yeah, he has to unmute himself. He's ready to go.
Well, I don't see him on the screen.
You want to go to the next one? Rainy?
Okay, we have Rainey.
Okay. Rainey.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hi, this is Nicolette Rainey. I'm a teacher in district, an elementary teacher. I've been listening very carefully and I'm appreciative of the family speaking from the special ed perspective. I'd like to broaden that perspective into all of our kiddos in the K-5 range, and that I think the school board members are correct that this is a multifaceted issue that has been impacting our children. And I've really appreciated that over the past 2 years when we've had to, go into shutdown within like a 3-day span and do remote learning, come back with a lot of really strict guidelines last year. Every time we felt safe in your choices because you followed the recommendations of the science. And we keep clicking back and talking about the science. And I feel like for the first time, we're not listening to the science. I think the mother before me spoke really well to it of, this is not an emotional decision. We can't now make an emotional decision. We need to listen to the guidance, and the guidance says we do not need to wear masks. And I worry that if our schools continue to require children to wear masks, that it's going to send a message that our schools are not safe, because our children can now go to a restaurant, they can go to a park, they can go anywhere within our town and area without wearing a mask. But when they come to school, they have to wear a mask. And to me, that sends the message that our schools are not safe for them, and that at school would be the place where they would get sick and harm others. I think it is a very slippery slope to hold on to these controls and reins on our students in prediction or hypotheses of what could happen, because looking at the data and the science, our children could die at any time with any type of sickness in any type of way. And unfortunately, we can't predict that. Our children could get harmed sliding down our slide every day, but the data has shown that we can do the best we can to protect our children and, hope for the best as any parent or teacher would, and follow the guidance of what our pediatricians, what our CDC is saying, what our governor is saying. And we can't.
You muted yourself, Fran.
There must be like
There
a
you go.
timeout button. Yeah, no, I heard that. Thank you for telling me. No, I just feel like we didn't have a choice when we had to shut down. We just had to. We didn't have a choice when we went to remote. We didn't have a choice when we came back with a lightened day with required masks indoor and outdoor. We didn't have a choice when it switched and now we could wear them outside. We didn't have to wear masks outside. So I don't feel that we have a choice now. I feel like we need to listen to what has been given the guidance to us. And we, as citizens of this town, need to follow through with that. That is what our job is here. And just to remember that. And it's an emotional impact on our children within or outside of special ed. This is not, the special ed kiddos are not the only ones struggling from this pandemic. And so just remembering all of them in this time that we need to take care of them. And the masks are not the only thing that take care of them. And
well, that's what Felicia said at the very beginning, you know, but your point's well taken. Where'd you go?
That's it for questions, Coach.
Hmm?
That was
Has
the
she
last
dropped?
question.
Okay. But
No, we just had another one added. Sorry. Lisa Burton.
yep. Lisa.
Yep. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. I just had a clarifying question. If the board adopts the policy that was listed of, you know, optional masking and masking in certain situations, I'm aware of at least one teacher in the district who is immunocompromised. And I just wondered if teachers have concerns around their own health or the health of someone in their family because of something like that. Do they have the option of asking students to be masked? Or is that something not allowed because it'll be optional? That's a question I have.
So I would have to say, Lisa, I am going to defer that question to, if it was posed to the administration, what would your reaction be, Tom and Felicia, to that question?
I would defer that to Tom. I don't know if it would be allowed. I think anybody who, like I mentioned, if universal masking, the recommendations from Vermont, from the CDC are, you know, based on community transmission, universal masking is not recommended right now, but anyone with concerns or, you know, at risk for severe disease should consult with their healthcare provider about what steps they should be taking. So for the individual, that's what I would say, but I wouldn't be able, I would leave it to Tom to speak to the other piece.
That's what I thought, but go ahead, Tom.
I think there's two things at play here. One is someone who is immunocompromised or is going through some sort of a health issue or crisis at this time should be consulting with their physician to make sure that what they're doing in their life is safe. So if their occupation is safe, if it is not safe, then the physician would be advising them like, this is something where you need to take a medical leave, or you need to take an absence, or request remote ability. So that's the first thing. But the second thing with a case like this, if the physician wasn't willing or didn't think that was necessary, I certainly think it would be appropriate for the teacher and the principal to ask the parents and ask the students in the class, this is something I'm really worried about. Everybody knows I'm going through this health crisis. Is this something that is voluntarily acceptable or not? And I don't know how the board feels about that, but that's probably the way I would approach it. I mean, I think if someone felt that they weren't comfortable with that and they really didn't want to wear the mask, then they have to accept that decision. But I think many folks probably would comply and would be willing to do that. That's the way I would handle that. I'm not sure if it's 100% appropriate, but I think it's the Vermont way that we would handle something like this. You have someone in your immediate community who's uncomfortable because of a legitimate reason. And do folks, want to comply with that or not? And I'd love to hear what the board thinks of that response.
I know that they can't hear me out there. I actually just wanted you really quickly I wanted to ask a critical question to you, and I already sort of know the answer to this, but am I correct in saying that yes, people in the staff in the school district can consult with their doctor and say, yes, I need an extra layer of protection. Here is my documentation, and present it to you, and then request a specialized environment. That's what you're saying. Right.
They could request a specialized assignment or accommodation. We do that quite often. So, that's the way we would handle it. We had many accommodations when we first came back last year. And the way that we operated last year, we had teachers who needed extra precautions, KN95s, N95 masks, different types of isolation type areas, ways to keep them slightly safer. So there are definitely accommodations that we could support when they're, justified and supported by a physician or treating physician. So there are a lot of things we could do.
Yep.
Next is Salamita.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
Thanks for taking me. My name is Dan Solomita. I'm a father of a 14-year-old girl in the middle school, as well as a 5-year-old son in kindergarten. And I also have an immunocompromised 2-year-old who's been hospitalized several times with infectious diseases. I just want to speak to a subject that I don't really think has been touched upon here. The danger of Omicron compared to original COVID. The version of the CDC had just released a study showing that the fatality rate of Omicron is actually fell below the flu. And furthermore, you haven't spoken of any data of the effectiveness of masks historically in stopping the spread of COVID-19. And I don't necessarily accept the thought that they have been successful. So I'd really like to see a return to normalcy. I mean, I was at the basketball games here in the high school, and every single player had their mask around their chin, and every single one. And that's because they can't breathe. And I don't think it's right to continue down this path with the children. And the same kids that, as Nicolette said, were at a crowded restaurant maskless the day before school are now being forced to put masks on when they go to school. I just think it's time to end this. It's getting silly, and it's becoming more political and about virtue signaling than anything else.
Thanks, Dan.
Next is Katie.
Katie?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Hello, my name is Olivia. I am a student at the high school. I am also autistic and immunocompromised, so I can kind of see both sides of this. I think that masks have been hindering learning to some extent, but that's expected. But I also see that it's very important to keep our students safe. And so I'm not opposed to reducing, getting rid of universal masking, but I think it's really important to keep our other enforcement strong in terms of tracing and testing and otherwise. So making sure that we actually have systems in place that can ensure that we're keeping everyone safe is really important. And yeah.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you, Olivia.
We're good right now.
Okay. I think we're at a point where what I'm going to suggest is we had a proposal from the administration, as to our suggested protocol that was offered at the beginning of the last meeting. I'd like to hear that again. I think we had on the screen what the recommendations from our COVID task force in the district recommended as far as the procedural components that they're requesting are, from Felicia and the rest of the team. So Tom, would you feel comfortable giving us that overview again of what you were proposing? And then I think that's where the board would start from.
No problem, Coach. Last week, I kind of started this with the recommendation that we follow the State Agency of Education and the Vermont Department of Health guidance and end universal masking as of this past Monday, which was the 14th. And I certainly understood where the board came from. I probably did that. Well, it was sudden for all of us as administrators. It originally was on the 28th of February, we were supposed to revert to the guidance that was originally intended by the state way back in September, that on the 28th of, well, it was supposed to start at the beginning of the year with the vaccination, that we could unmask if we had an 80% vaccination rate.
Mm-hmm.
That was suspended until February 28th. As February 28th approached, the state decided to dismiss the vaccination requirement and just say on the 14th, schools could make a masking optional. School boards, superintendents could decide whether to forego the universal masking recommendation. And we decided as a district, with the COVID coordinators and the COVID response team, that we would, recommend that to the school board. And I think the week since then, we've researched the CDC guidance. We've done the crosswalk between the CDC guidance and the state guidance, and understand now where they are aligned. And Felicia did a great job of explaining that tonight and last week. So I am still comfortable with the recommendation that we suspend, and that's a key word, I think, suspend at this time, based on the current transmission rates, the universal masking mandate in Hartford schools. But I absolutely support anybody in the district who wants to continue wearing a mask. I absolutely support the board if they're not ready to go there, and will work my hardest to support whatever they recommend or whatever they vote on tonight. That's where I am. And I think that the key with all of this is that it could be temporary. Believe me, I hope more than everyone, or as much as everyone else, that this is over or that we're nearing the end of this. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen. But at this time, that's what I would recommend. And, certainly in alignment with the COVID coordinators and the COVID team.
Russ.
When are you proposing, if adopted, to adopt or abolish the mask mandate? Suspend, whatever.
I'm going to be careful with that word, because whatever the board decides to do, I don't want people to feel like the masks should be burned or thrown away. They may come back, and I'm sorry.
Right.
I hope they don't. We're going to do everything we can, but there is a possibility it'll spike and they'll come back.
And that's the reality, of the situation. And even no matter who you talk to, that's what everybody does say. The governor's team, the scientist, the head of the CDC said that. 2 Sundays ago. She says,
For me,
Yeah.
as far as the question of when, I would support whatever the board decides to do. If the board's ready to suspend them now, could be tomorrow, it could be next Monday, it could be whatever makes sense to the board and to folks in the community. I don't.
well, Olivia has her hand up.
Thank you. With the wording of this as like a suspension of universal masking, is that wording flexible enough to continue to allow masking in areas where it's encouraged or guidelines are saying that masking should be done, such as performing arts settings?
Thank you,
Tom?
Libby. I suggested just before the meeting, and I didn't give Felicia enough time to research that with the other nurses, but I have been informed that the masking guidance for music and that's chorus and band is different, and that remains in place in terms of their professional organization because of the way someone singing or performing in the performing arts or playing an instrument project their voice and exert so much breath when they do those activities. There is a recommendation that we remain distancing at 3 feet. We remain masks when we sing, and we remain with the and I'm blanking on the name of the nets that go, the covers that go over the horns to
Yeah, the bell covers.
the bell covers.
Yeah.
So I think that if Felicia and I and the other nurses can verify that that is still the recommendation of them, that would be added to this guidance, because we certainly don't want them to be unsafe. We have a hand in the audience, Coach.
Okay. In the audience, coming up.
I thought we flipped that.
Yes.
Oh, there it is. Tessa.
Hi.
We have 2 hands.
Okay.
One
2
in
hands?
cyberspace and one in the auditorium.
Okay. So Tessa, you go ahead first.
Okay, thank you. Just in regards to the comment about the music and the masking, does the same apply to sports? Because there is equally as much heavy breathing and exhaling with sports as there is with music.
It's an interesting question, and I knew that would come up. I have not heard that recommendation for sports. And spring sports are outside. So that wouldn't have been applied all year if we were outside.
Right. So our
And
audience
just to be
question?
sure, just to be clear, I have not heard that music guidance from the State Department of Health or from the CDC. I've heard that from the National Organization of music teachers and the music.
Right. Yes. So our audience member.
Hi, I'm Anna again. So I personally am in choir at Hartford High School, and I find that it is actually really restricting to breathe and to be expected to sing at full capacity with a mask on. And so I feel if you want our performing arts departments to be working at their best, and for us to be performing and then expected to do school as well while exerting so much energy into trying to breathe through that mask, that we can't really wear masks when we do that, especially since we are doing the recommended 3 feet apart and being careful. And the band does have their bell covers over their instruments. And so I feel that it's actually restricting on our health and our breathing to wear masks, especially in things where you are exerting a lot of energy and breath.
Thank you.
Another question?
Christian Durgan?
Christian.
Yes, hi there, and I apologize for, I'm just getting home, but my daughter has been on. So if this has been covered already, I just want to put out the perspective from a fellow educator in a different school system. Just witness it. The social development, I worry about, not being able to read people's faces and the social cues that, are so important to development. And as a parent of 2 children that are also deaf and used, facial cues to, like, it's been a long 2 years. And I just want to throw out that idea about weighing the value of, social development that comes with being able to, read people's faces. And it just as a weighing the pros and cons. And so I would, and I don't know what this, like I said, I'm just getting here, but I just want to say there is parental support for, in the community for unmasking, if that hasn't been said, just because these pros at this point, I feel outweigh the dangers. So that's all I'll say.
Okay, thank you. Is there, yep.
Hello again, Chris. Sure.
Yep, go ahead.
So regarding concerns about the masks and people who are immunocompromised, obviously, I talked about my son who's really struggled these last 2 years, having he got to the point where he entered 4th grade at Dothan Brook. He was having a great year, and then COVID hit, and it all went downhill for him. But I also have a wife who is also immunocompromised as well due to an autoimmune disease. And even she has gotten to the point now where she is no longer going to live in fear because she can't get vaccinated. And even she's like, I'm at the point where I'm not going to live in fear of this disease anymore. As a my profession, I'm a nurse. I have dealt with more COVID infected patients than I think anyone here has even met. I have been literally this close to people with COVID in a time before there was a vaccine, and I did not get COVID. I took my precautions. I had my N95, I had face shields. So if there are people, staff, students who are immunocompromised and they're that concerned, I mean, I was concerned too. I mean, was afraid that I might bring this stuff home.
All right, anyways, thank you.
And with an immunocompromised way.
Yeah, no problem.
If you're that concerned about getting it, get yourself an N95, get yourself a face shield, you will be protected. But it is time that the rest of us live our lives. Yes, that's hard for you being immunocompromised, but you know what? Were people concerned about your immunocompromised colleague when there was a flu breakout? Did we mask up when we had swine flu a decade ago? That was killing people, that we had to come out with a whole different flu shot just to deal with that. Again, it is time for us to move on and live our lives. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Unless we have additional questions.
Libby Keith with her hand up.
Go ahead.
Could be added as a panelist. Well, while we're waiting for Libby, I just want to be clear that the any additional guidance, like the music guidance, that's not going to be from me out of thin air. That's going to be based on what the experts are saying about music. So I will be very careful. It's been very, very hard this year. Music, athletics, the whole situation. So I will be extremely careful about what that guidance is and how to keep everyone safe. And obviously, if we have no mask mandate, we're going to be as clear as we can about when and where you don't have to wear a mask in music, drama, chorus, band, and when you do. So it's going to be based on the science as much as we can dig in and find that science and that expertise.
And that would be the expectation. As we're waiting for the
Libby Key.
there was
We did receive a letter from her this week, so.
So I guess if there aren't any other hands,
David might not have let Libby in yet.
No, she has to unmute herself.
Okay, Libby, you need to unmute yourself.
well, she's not. I don't even see her. I saw everybody else.
She's not in as a panel.
Right.
Panelist.
Because everybody else has showed up as a panelist.
Yeah.
David, can you see her as a panelist?
Yeah, she's an attendee. She has to unmute herself.
No, she's an attendee, not a panelist.
Does she need to be made a panelist?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because she, or at least, she has to be able to have a voice. We don't see her, as anything right now.
Okay, I promoted her to panelist.
Thank you.
There we go.
Hey, Libby, now you need to unmute yourself. Sorry about the delay.
That's okay.
Okay.
I couldn't text or comment to say I'm not actually in. So I just want to say that, so I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and a doctorate level PhD psychologist. The level of psychological damage that this whole pandemic has given, I can't even begin to explain the amount of phone calls I get daily. People that are living in social isolation to the point that our suicide rate, suicide ideation, hospitalizations are just through the roof. We have kids that are sitting in ERs for 45 days awaiting a bed and stabilization because of this pandemic, because of masking, because of fear, and everything that this has gone, like everything that this is.
Oh, she got bounced out. I don't know what happened.
Libby, you need to sign back in.
Yeah.
Raise your hand and we will recognize you.
Yeah.
You back?
David,
No.
can you put her back in as a panelist, please?
There she is.
There she is.
Sorry about whatever happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I did write a letter to the school board because not only do I have children in the school, and this has been incredibly difficult for them, watching my sons and my daughters play sports, looking like they're suffocating, being yelled at and screamed at to put their mask up, where they're not even close to each other. They're playing basketball. They're not standing 6 feet. They're not standing with each other for more than 15 minutes at a time. They're running, they're playing. Last year, they had to play lacrosse with a helmet on, a mask, and a mouth guard. They couldn't breathe. We had people running track completely solo by themselves in running lanes with masks on and not following any of the guidance that has been put forth at all. Some of these rules seem so arbitrary and punitive at some point. We have people all around us. If this mask mandate is not lifted today, we'll be the only school in the Upper Valley that has not lifted it. Dresden School District has, Windsor Southeast has, and Lebanon has. And kids in our district are starting to feel very, very much like they're doing something wrong, where our numbers are the same as everybody else. kids are going to do activities on other sides of the river and leaving our community because their restrictions are different. And what's happening? They're coming back into our community and the numbers aren't changing. And so I also work for an organization that I'm in the school district. I'm in 9 different schools every single week. What is going on with these kids psychologically is going to take a very, very long time to get over. I have a wait list for my private practice I can probably almost never get to. My phone, I had 16 referrals on Tuesday, and the majority of the referrals that are coming through are all mask and pandemic related. People have been conditioned to fear, not understanding why. We have major whiplash. 1 week it's this, 1 week it's this. I don't understand this. After exposure, you have to wear your mask for 10 days, but if you've had COVID and you isolate, you only have to wear it for 5. Some of these things just make zero sense whatsoever. And watching not only my own children go through this, watching my caseloads, my clinicians being so burnt out, the level of anger and frustration in the elementary schools are so beyond at this point. There is not enough staff to support what is going on. I am constantly struggling to try to find people to come to work to literally get tables thrown at them and kicked and punched. And because they are frustrated with all of this that's going on. And for keeping, if we use the guidance to put masks on, we need to use the guidance to take masks off. Otherwise, it's completely hypocritical and arbitrary. I also have a problem with the fact that we have school board members where you don't have kids in the school. You get to work at home maskless. You get to do all of this stuff where you don't have to be in a mask all day and not have to breathe in your own everything all the time. My kid the other day sneezed in his mask and he didn't have another one. And he had to sit there with a wet mask on, which is not good at all. We really, really need to take this from a very, very larger approach, because the psychological part of this that is happening, that I see daily, my clinicians see daily, the amount of crisis screening. I have a clinician at the middle school that can barely do her job because she is constantly being pulled to do crisis screenings for kids that are dysregulated. They were sent home, and especially in the middle school and high school, these kids were sent home with not a lot of structure. And as we know, structure reduces anxiety. Structure is what kids need to be able to be productive and move forward and what's going on. And so when you're in high school and middle school and parents need to work, it's actually not, they can stay home alone. They're a little bit more responsible. What happened, we have all these kids at home with no structure because parents had to go back to work for financial reasons. And now we're trying to reintegrate them into a structure that is, it's like herding cats. I see kids looking at teachers and telling them to F off daily because they spent a year and a half where nobody told them to do anything. We have a truancy issue that is above and beyond an absolutely zero system to take care of it. It used to be held by DCF. DCF does not handle truancy anymore. There's a whole process of to petition the state's attorney for truancy. That's not kids are passing classes at this point of kids that have not even been in school. And so when I talk about the psychological damage that this has had, we need to end it so we can start to fix it, because it is going to take an extremely long time. I'm very fortunate enough. My children don't have special needs. My children are pretty regulated, and even they are struggling. And then I look at the kids that do have special needs, that do have considerable mental health concerns, and they are struggling even more. And they get yelled at because they're masked, because that's what, their mask comes down and they have to have that addressed. I have one, there's a kiddo that's so anxious, he chews through his mask. How is that? It's not helping anything. Kids are getting sent home consistently and missing out more school. I don't want to speak to the academic portion of it because I'm not a teacher, but I see it in the behaviors. I see it in the increased anxiety, the increased suicidality. It is a real problem, and we cannot start to fix all those things until we at least release the mask part of it. They are literally being just completely confined, completely conditioned that if they don't wear this mask, they're doing something wrong. I hear that consistently. And we have to start to figure out how to undo the last 2 years psychologically. I know for my field of expertise is early childhood trauma, and this constitutes a trauma. And this will have to be addressed going forward for many years.
I think she
We
hit
lost
the
Libby,
lead.
but
Yeah,
we do have another question, Coach.
Sam?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I really appreciated the passion of the last caller, because as a parent, the last 2 years have been, I've been through a lot in my life, and the last 2 years have been some of the hardest of my life, because I have a small child. He has a speech issue. So to have that dismissed as the mask not affecting that is triggering for me, because I watched firsthand how difficult it is for a child who's learning to speak to not see faces and to have something encumbering their face. And I think another element that I'd like to add to that is it's not just the speech, it's not just this very, like speech obviously can be addressed. You can have speech therapy, but the larger issue for me is the social emotional part. My child felt disconnected from the world for 2 years, and I watched him withdraw. And I watched my bubbly, outgoing, beautiful child turn inward. And he would tell me very directly, no one's happy anymore. No one's smiling. No one's happy. I don't want to go out anymore. I don't want to go anywhere anymore. And he would tell me that. And it's heartbreaking. And frankly, I'll keep this short and sweet. If we continue universal masking, I don't feel safe with my child in the school system. And even though I'm a single mom, I will work very hard to find another situation for him. And I'm trying not to get emotional, because it's a very, masking has an impact. And so that has to be factored into when we're talking about health and safety of our children, their social emotional health and their ability to communicate is very key in that. And I do not want that to be dismissed. And so I appreciate all the voices and all the different sides. I completely understand the immunocompromised side of the story, but I will say the health of my child, the health and well-being of my child has been impacted. And as a mother, I am his advocate and I have to speak for him. And so that is what I'm doing here. I guess I'll just leave it there.
Thanks, Sam. Yes.
Just as a matter of fact, actually, the majority of the board have students. I think it's important that everyone realize that. And it is what it is, but I just wanted to make sure we were completely transparent in that regard. Oh, they can't hear, sorry about that. But I just want to make it clear that a majority of the board actually does have students in the district. So I think it's important that everyone knows the actual fact.
Thanks for that point of clarification. Olivia.
Thank you. I would like to add on to that point of clarification that Mr. North just made. I am one of 2 student representatives that are on the school board tonight. I am a senior in Hartford High School, and there is another student representative who is a junior. And so parents and students are both present on this board.
Thank you all for clarity. I think unless there's any additional questions, either from the live audience, or from the Zoom audience, I think we're gonna move the question. What?
There are
There are 2?
They disappeared.
Jen Parker.
There they are again.
Okay. So Jen Parker.
Hi, this is actually Mike.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
I was just curious, depending on the vote tonight, what happens? You know, I work for the federal government, and we just went maskless over in Hanover, based on the county level. You know, whether we're medium risk and below, we're allowed to be maskless. If it goes back high risk, we have to put our mask back on. What if our kids show up to school without masks on? The state is saying no. CDC is recommending no. The federal government is saying no. What's going to be the consequence if they just show up without a mask?
We haven't even made a decision yet, so we will deal with that in time. There hasn't been, my understanding, serious implications from that perspective. But as we've heard and continue to hear, this is a very emotional, issue for a lot of folks. And at some point, a decision has to be made, and we will live with that decision, and we will try to move forward. Olivia?
Thank you. Being someone who's in the school right now, if a student comes to school without a face mask, then they are currently being given a face mask by someone in the school. There are no punishments or things like that. If you don't come to school with a mask, you are just given one, and you are expected to continue to go about your day with the mask.
Yeah. That was my understanding, because I hadn't heard anything different, Okay.
Christina,
there was another hand.
Last. Christina Tardy, please.
Christina.
David, Christina Tardy.
She has to unmute herself.
Well, she's not elevated yet. She's not on the screen. We've seen everybody else on the screen.
She still needs to be promoted as a panelist.
Right. I mean, otherwise she's not there.
Sorry, Dave, can you hear us?
Dave, did you elevate her as a panelist?
She's not a panelist. She has to unmute. Do you want me to promote her as a panelist?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes,
we can get her
please.
question, and please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Christina.
Thank you, Christina Tardy.
Go ahead,
White
Christina.
River, White River
Yep.
Junction. My question is, what is the legal base for the school board to go against the state of Vermont recommendation at this point? It feels like, yeah, that's my question.
Tom, you want to?
I mean, I'm happy to answer all these questions about, if there's mask mandate or what rights the school board has. I'm not sure if the school board, wants to move the question, but as far as the school board sets basically the law of the school district, and they have the ultimate authority for the safety and security of the students and staff here. So if they choose to go further than the state with a mask mandate, Hartford, they absolutely have that authority. And that's the way it goes. They are the governing body of the school district. Just like the select board are the governing body of the town of Hartford and the municipality, the school district is basically a municipality, and they have the rule of law, and they can decide what they want to see here, well, how they want to protect the kids and staff. So if they choose to continue the mask mandate, which they have actually all year, they can so choose.
Peter,
So Coach, I'd
Yes.
like to move that on Monday, the 21st of March, we implement the proposed Hartford School District COVID response that was developed by COVID group here at the school district. Is there a second?
there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Did everybody hear the motion? I should say first. Nancy, did you hear the motion? Ava, did you hear? Russ, did you hear the motion?
Yes, I did.
So is there a second?
I would ask that somebody second, just so we can move, whether
I
voting
will do
for it,
so.
against it, or for it.
I will do so just so we're on record. Yes,
Yeah.
yep. I second.
So presently, there is a motion on the floor that we follow the recommendation of our school district administration and the COVID team of the Hartford School District. That is the motion on the floor. Is there any further board discussion around that motion? You know, if there's a question as to what that is, because we've heard a lot of information and we've heard a lot of, testimony, from the public, is there any question about what that is? Because I think that we could have, Tom explain it again, at least the overview of what that would look like if there's a question. Otherwise, we will move to vote.
Doesn't appear there's any questions here.
We should move the vote.
Okay, so the question has been moved. We're going to do a roll call vote. I'll start with Hava.
Okay.
What was your response?
Hava, I don't think they could hear you.
Nay.
Take the mask off for a second and just yell it in the
Peter?
camera or something.
Oh, you got it.
Okay.
So Hava said no.
Yes.
Peter is a yes. Nancy? No. Russ?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So the motion passes. So Tom, would you just reiterate with an overview, a very, succinct overview of what we will be looking at?
Okay, so we will be looking at suspending the mask mandate Monday, the 21st, I believe that is, in the Hartford School District. And we will be following the other guidance that Felicia outlined about staying home when sick, masking when symptomatic, and testing before returning after being sick. Felicia, you can jump in with your more experienced perspective from the nursing view. I'll send out all this communication to all the folks in the community. What have I missed, Felicia?
That we will continue to monitor the rate of infection within the area and respond accordingly.
Correct.
So that will be going out to the Hartford school community. So everyone will, see what the protocol and procedure is from this point on.
I might add, Coach, that we will be very supportive of anyone who chooses to continue to wear a mask Monday and thereafter. And we will have no tolerance for teasing or bullying or any sort of harassment about those folks who choose to continue to wear a mask. If you feel like the school isn't doing enough about it, you need to let me know. And yes, that's it.
Great. So we have a direction. All right.
I would also hope that the school will also stop asking children in the middle of class about their vaccination status to violating their HIPAA rights. If we're talking about bullying.
That isn't actually a HIPAA right, so, but yes.
Medical records, vaccination records.
I think if you want, you've got to be heard by the chair and you come up to the mic and speak. We don't just yell out from the audience.
So we will entertain the public comment.
One last thing I just want to say is that, yes, I appreciate about the whole bullying comment, but you know what? Bullying goes both ways. And I've heard of children getting tormented because they weren't vaccinated, as well as, you're worried about, the kids who choose to still wear masks. Well, I can also see the kids that aren't wearing masks being tormented as well. So I want to make sure that this goes both ways and not just focused on one narrow-minded view, which seems to be the preview of this board. Thank you.
Trying to think of the best way to answer this. Hava, go ahead.
I just want to make sure that it's very clear that this board, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the administration supports no bullying for everybody. And I'm sad that that doesn't go without saying.
Whether it's teasing or harassment or bullying about vaccination or mask wearing or the color of your hair or the pants you choose to wear, none of that is acceptable. All of that should be dealt with similarly and in the effort to get it to stop. So I don't feel that's appropriate, teasing or harassing someone about their vaccination status.
And I can tell, our community member that it is unacceptable to this board. And that I'll say emphatically. Let's see.
We have some other business, just
yes.
Just to move on. We do have a few other things that have been held up.
Right.
technical difficulties last week.
So we have the consent agenda. So we have the regular meeting minutes from 2/9. We have the minutes from the 2/21 budget candidates night. We have the minutes from the 2/23 community engagement meeting. And we have the 2/26 town meeting. And actually, we wouldn't have the
You have part one.
yeah, because we had a partial meeting.
I don't know how the board wanted to treat that. So they're ready, they're posted. If you want to approve those, they're there. Or if you want to approve those next time with the second half. They really do stand alone.
Right. Yeah, because we did adjourn. So we do have those minutes, the record of that part of the meeting.
You
so
do have
that
a couple appointments I have tonight.
right. So we'd like to get the appointments, resignations, and retirements, please.
We have two appointments. Justin Bouvier is the nominee for the assistant principal at the middle school. I didn't talk about him last time. I did talk a little bit about the next nominee, but Justin, there was a committee of several teachers at the middle school, Aubrey Kilinowski, the art teacher, Bryson Nardone, social studies teacher, and David Ballou, who is another teacher at the middle school, as well as Maggie Ibrahim, Roy Hathorn, Tristan Upson, and myself. And we went through our traditional intensive selection process, because this is an administrative position, and did a first interview online. We did a second interview in person. We did a third activity with the staff and faculty, which was a forum. They had to answer, they had to present on several different topics and answer questions to the staff and faculty who attended. We had to tally a rating sheet, tallied those scores up. And in the end, Justin was our favorite, our clear top pick. So I'm nominating him tonight. I have his cover letter, resume, and packet here for the board to review if they'd like. And then the other nominee is Julie Robinson, who is our finalist for the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment at the elementary level. Similar to Justin, we had a committee of the two elementary principals, Amelia Donahue and Doug Cussius, as well as Linda Trombley, who's a teacher at the White River School, and Franklin Burns, who's a teacher at the Hilton Brook School, Maggie Ibrahim, Roy Hathorn, and myself. And we started with 14 applicants for that position, narrowed it quickly to 7 that we interviewed online. We went from 7 to 2 finalists in person. And we did a survey of the staff about the qualities and the characteristics and the traits that they would like in a new curriculum director at the elementary level. And we selected Julie. Her resume and cover letter packet is here. We're really excited about her beginning to July. So I'd ask you to appoint those two. Happy to have you look at that information. But I'm really impressed with the turnout we got from the 2 ads. It's 17, I think, applicants for the assistant principal, 14 director of CIA. Many of my colleagues are saying they're getting very few applicants. So for a lot of reasons, we attracted some really bright candidates, and these are two excellent nominees. Hopefully the board will see that too. And that is all I have for appointments, resignations, retirement.
I make a motion.
We will have a lot of appointments, resignations, and retirement. Sorry, Nancy, I didn't hear that.
No, go ahead, Nancy.
I was just going to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. We hadn't set the specifics for the community engagement meeting for next week. But what we had on the calendar was the review and preparation, for the ends policies piece with the annual reports that come in from the K through 12, actually, because everybody has a report out in some regard. But the meeting would be primarily to discuss with Kathy and Roy and Tom what it's going to look like, and get questions from the community as far as additional questions that we might want to pose to the grade level administrators about what's going on in their schools. Does that make sense, Tom?
I think the administrators, we may be a little bit confused. We had anticipated, since we hadn't done that earlier, we thought that we were actually doing the ends reports in a similar fashion to what we did in years past at both the March 23rd, I think it is, meeting, and then the following meeting. But if that's not what you want, we certainly can entertain.
So
not for next meeting, obviously, because we won't be giving them enough notice. But we could entertain that for a later meeting in May and June, perhaps.
So we lost it on the calendar, because we had those technical difficulties last week.
We also have had a couple issues on our minds lately with COVID and everything else. So
let's talk about.
We haven't gotten to the ends. We were talking about revisiting the ends and then possibly changing up the presentations. But
so anyways, that being said, it looks like we have who's going to be showing up Wednesday?
We don't know yet, but we will. But if you'd like to put that off, we can rearrange the last few meetings, or we can hear from
if they're ready, let's leave it open. We've got a couple of days before we have to put the agenda, together. So let's take a breath.
Yeah, I mean, I do need to lock that down with them if they're reporting out on what we've asked them in the past, or if it's something different, new and improved, then I need to give them a little time to get their data together and their report.
Well, it wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair to ask them to do something different at this point in time, because even our curriculum rollouts, especially at the elementary level, we postponed that in light of the pandemic. And so but I think, we have that statutory piece that needs to be done, which is, we have to do that action plan. Now we've called it something different, every spring, but at the end of the day, that's what it accomplishes as far as, AOE goes. So, we need to keep that in mind.
Had we had our regular meeting last time, we were going to get into, the format or the outline for what we've done in the past. We're happy to add to that, or if there's something within what we've done in the past that you would like us to really focus on, or a particular school to focus on, we could do that. But if we're going to make a wholesale, complete change of what they're doing, we really should give them enough time to prepare.
My personal feeling, and this is one of the few times I'll say that, is that would not be fair. In light of everything else that's been going on. If you and Roy and Kathy feel that we usually would do like 2 and sometimes 3, utilizing the format, and with what Roy and Kathy have been doing as far as the ends reporting at each of our regular meetings, we've accomplished a lot with keeping up to speed with what's going on, regarding the ends. So I would think that it would make sense for us to maintain, the same format, unless any of the other board members have specific questions that they'd like to add, to the elementary level. They would be the first up.
Also, I would be happy to revise the process or overhaul the process, next year. Get started a little earlier.
No. That we're not going to do it now. but we've spoken about that, and we've adapted it. I don't know what, 6 or 7 times in the last 11 years. So we keep trying to improve it. So, Nancy.
Thank you. I just wanted to make this little public statement at the end of our meeting here, is that even though that our board did not vote unanimously on this, that we still are a board and we work together. And even though we have different opinions, we could still voice those opinions in a civil manner, and that our board will continue to make this school district safe for all of the children and the staff that are in it to the best of our abilities. And I think that's really important. I want the people to hear that we are one unit. And even though we may have the different opinions, we still are here to make sure that every child in this district gets a quality education, and they've done it in a safe and healthy manner, and that the staff will be kept safe too. So thank you for letting me say that.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Nancy.
Very, very well said, Nancy. And that wasn't a commercial plug either.
Russ,
Russ
would like to say
Russ, go ahead, sir.
I will amplify Nancy's comments. And I'd also like to give an indication that in the second meeting in April, I will make an announcement whether or not I'm going to stay on the board. Recent events have made it possibly untenable for me to be on the board.
Oh my.
Okay.
Coach, one other thing, I just want to apologize to the board about the, I'll use the board's word, kerfluffle with CATV and the start of this meeting. I'm glad we were able to finish it. I had gone over with Samantha and Chico, the administration of CATV, what our expectation was. I clearly stated to them that the meeting this week would be in a different location because of the divisive nature of the topic. And I thought I had confirmation of that. I was very clear that it would be held at the high school auditorium. I don't want to throw them under the bus. You know, they're busy trying to cover so many meetings, but in the future, I'll be even more clear and more specific with what our expectations are. Between last week's meeting and the trouble with the Zoom link, and then this week's meeting, I will be sitting down with them and reviewing what I think of the school board and my expectations for the coverage, because this has been hard. I mean, the meeting was stressful enough, and we don't need those technological issues. I'm very appreciative for the board being so flexible and sticking with it. And I'm very, very happy with Roy and Kathy's support to make us, allow us to be able to pull this off. And Olivia too. Olivia on the side advising us with all her expertise. So about the auditorium. But I am it's embarrassing, and it's absolutely unnecessary. I'm really sorry.
Well, that's the thing, you know, we're still all human, you know, there's no angels here. They might be somewhere near us, hopefully, keeping us online, but you know, we're not them, or at least I'm not them. That being said, it looks like we've got you know, a plan. We'll review the 23rd agenda. Tom and I will go over that and get that together. And I guess, you know, at this point, unless there's any further discussion,
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
there is a motion on the floor to adjourn, and I see thumbs up. Do we have a second? Nancy second. Nancy
Couldn't hear her,
seconded.
but
Yeah.
we think that movement meant she seconded.
Yeah, that it was Nancy. It was Nancy. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you all.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Have a good night.